if it's going to change, but at least from what it's on paper, it's not the best or ideal way to do it. But Hyderabad did it right. And then when Mitas failed, meaning when Mitas went bankrupt for different reasons, ILNFS took over. ILNFS took over as the whole company, Mitas, and now they're executing it. They're implementing it with L&T. You know. So PPP is the right model to go.
So if you actually see a couple of places, so there are two bits to it. One is you create the infra. If you monetize the real estate assets initially, or you do it once your operation starts happening. While you do after your operation starts happening and you have different SPVs, you call for developers to bid for those projects, right? The challenges we have seen in the recent past, A, these are typically leasehold lands, where you have a limited time frame to monetize it. B, being a leasehold land, your funding, probably you don't get funding to even execute those projects. So, given that, is there a need to change the structure itself?
As government, they cannot sell land. They have to lease it. Because our law of the land doesn't allow them to sell it. They can only lease it. DDA does it for 60 years. AUDA does it for 99 years. The government has to lease it, you know. So if you ask me, because the charter does not allow them to sell land, 60 years is great, you know. Either it has to be BOT, it gets transferred, or if you want to create more certainty or financing model, even a 60-year financing model is available. Like the Delhi Aerotomolist, GMR did it for 60 years. In fact, 58 years, because they have taken it from 60 years, and it took them 2 years to start the commercial exploitation, so they leased it out, subleased it out for 58 years. But it's a great model. They have the option to renew it, provided the airport authority renews the GMR contract. So there is uncertainty, but we've seen if government is your landlord, even if there is no renewal option, there is a relatively a certainty for a developer or a sponsor or private party to see that it'll get renewed. And anyways, in India, the financing model doesn't run more than 10 years. US Crystal don't recognize it more than 10 years. So I think the financing will be available even on a 30-year model. How aggressive a private party would bid at 30-year would not be as aggressive as a 60 or a 90-year with a renewable option. So that's not a handicap, if you ask me.
Your view on this?
Yeah, I think so. One thing can be also linked with the, this thing is more cheaper loans or finance may be available for such kind of private players who are involving in doing such kind of projects. Another is some kind of linked benefit. I don't know exactly, but some kind of linked benefit with the project. So it may attract private players to get in more into such kind of models.
I think I'm totally in sync with Mr. Rocky here. There is no other way except for public-private partnership is one. Government cannot sell land, they have to lease it. Pretty much across the world it is like that. And it works other places, it has to work in India also. India is the most densely populated in the world, populated country in the world. So basically, like, if China has more population, but India per kilometer has the highest population. If it is done scientifically, with right numbers in place, logically, there is no way this can fail.
I think it just is supposed to work, whichever way it works financially. I think it's important for our cities to make it work and have the development in this way so that it helps the overall development of the city in the future.
Over here, since I have closely worked with many of these projects, a couple of things which kind of, it's not really working in favor of the developers is a royalty which is attached, right? So for the life of the project, you have to pay, say, 7%, 8%, 9%, whatever it might be. In couple of cases, if it's an airport-related development, all the commercial space should be related to the, airport-related development. And you're talking about monetizing 20 acres, 30 acres of land for commercial. What kind of demand, you're talking about just from airport-related activities. So obviously, on one side, we are talking about a PPP. On the other side, we are putting constraints in the structure itself for that to be monetized?
You know, the constraints come from the charter. If that land was acquired for a specific public purpose, the specific public purpose has to be maintained. If the airport land was acquired for an airport, that is why the Aerotopolis, Mumbai, what you mentioned is Mumbai or Delhi or, you know, but if the land was acquired by a private party for a non-specific use, then they could do non-specific activities. So that is why there is an handicap on the GMR and GVK in Mumbai and Delhi for their usages. That's why they're doing travel-related, airport-related activities. They're calling it Aerotopolis. So, but I think, you know, if there is decent size, meaning GMR was able to sell all that land or lease all that land to all the hotels. So you have to compare that if the freehold land or DDA leased land in periphery of Delhi or in periphery of the Delhi airport runs in hundreds of crores per acre. So they subsidized it for 50% of the cost. So it still was viable for all these people. They did second round of it and it was viable again. Yeah, if they didn't have handicap, they would probably reduce the airport usage fees per person that they're charging. So it's all factored into the model. But on the transit corridors, if the land was bought for the stations, if it was allotted for stations, there won't be restriction to use it only for station activities. Like, you know, Delhi Metro, they gave it to private players like Parshvanath did 10 of those or 8 of those stations they have malls attached to it. So there's no restriction because the station needs, you know, entertainment, footfall, shopping. They could all be allied activities connected to the transit corridor stations, which will make it very economically viable. In fact, when Mitas was going to do it in Hyderabad, they bought additional land around some of these stations which were in outskirts, and they were freehold lands. They were going to do mini townships. The Taj Express corridor, which JP is doing, they acquired their private land to do 5 large townships. Each township is 1,000 acres, something like that. So they're going to commercially exploit it. So Taj Expressway was essentially subsidized by the commercial exploitation of the land that was going to be done around by the developers. So there are entrepreneurs in India. If you give them PPPs, they'll figure out a way to make it economically viable, and the country will get infrastructure. It's just a great way to do it. So yeah, answer to your question is they need to be a little more flexible, but then still be within the frame of law. We have PILs also in this country, you know.
So your wish list, 2 of them, if you want to make TOD successful in India, what will those be?
Say that again?
Your wish list, 2 of them, if you want to make TOD successful in India, what would those be?
You know, one of the things he said, they make capital available cheaper for these PPP. The capital is the biggest handicap. You know, the large-scale capital. I think even sovereign guarantees should be available to these developers. Because somebody's going to go raise 40,000 crores for a metro transit corridor. I don't think anybody has a balance sheet to raise 40,000 crores. So, you know, if India's sovereign guarantee was given to raise this money in Singapore, you could get money at 2%, making it more viable. Why should sovereign or a country not give this guarantee? Because ultimately infrastructure is being built in our country.
Right.
So when government goes and borrows it to build national highway, it's no different than building a metro. So you do a PPP, that's one, you know, the first aspect of it. Make capital available cheaper, and work it backwards when you do the PPP is make it economically viable. You'll have even not, why worry about national, you'll have international developers coming in and trying to exploit this opportunity here.
How's your views?
I think that definitely is the very important aspect, but from my perspective also it is important to have more connectivity and thinking about the last mile, the bikes, the feeder buses, also how the inter-transportation, you know, connecting all those different things like the AMTS and BRTS, metro and BRTS. So thinking about those and comprehensively planning and working on those, that I think is a very important aspect, attached with more I mean, it's more infrastructure related. How do I get interested in taking a bus to go to my office when I was okay in Pittsburgh, and why am I not okay here?
I think, see, if you see any document of TOD across the world, and if you talk about the nitty-gritty of it, one of the major aspects that they consider and we do not hear is pedestrians and cyclists. We have completely ignored pedestrians in our city, or actually in the entire country, where they do not have right walkways to walk. The cyclists do not have designated lanes. The safety is a major concern for pedestrians right now in our country. So while we are talking about transit-oriented development, that is a major, because one of the major ways of a most commonly used transit way or method is walking. We completely are ignoring our country right now. So safety and convenience for them and the cyclists is one of the major things that they need to consider. The second is, when they're talking about development around transit, they need to talk about organized development around the transit. When there is a draft plan of a town planning that comes out in other parts of the world, they have designated areas not just for gardens, but also for hospitals, malls, public transit, and all the like movie theaters and so on, because this will encourage, like, spreaded development. We are in a tragedy in Ahmedabad. If we talk about Ahmedabad, on one junction I can see 4 malls. Like 4 malls on one junction, which, like, think about the retailers, which mall, like, which mall they will go into. And while there is a lot of areas where there is no shopping arcades at all, who's to be blamed? Government has to take the initiative and ensure that that development is seamless all across the city and just not concentrated into the pockets.
I think so. One, for the success of this kind, I feel that a good finance policy regarding for such kind of PPP project first is, and some of the, even a good tax planning along with a beneficial something kind of should be connected from my point of view. And third is to attract this kind of thing. Government may have a policy of giving certain remote area or land or something. If any of the players want to, do this transit orient in a proper city area, he may get a benefit of getting the remote area developed by his own way and get an extra benefit in either by extra construction or extra FSI or maybe some tax benefit or a financial benefit. I think so. This is more a workable model that's come into my mind when I talk. This may be work out.
Great. So I have immensely benefited from the discussion which we had. What I hear from Rocky in terms of the way forward, we should have institutional way of financing for these, and it could be international financing, sovereign guarantee, those kind of things, so that it's not a hindrance toward undertaking a long gestation projects. Master planning, as I hear from Anand as well as Harsh, is that it's a very, very integrated component, be it in terms of pedestrian walking, be it in terms of last mile connectivity. The objective is to make it convenient for people to use these kind of things. For instance, in Delhi, even now, though people have started using it, they take their car, go to the nearest metro, park it because there's ample parking facility, and then take the metro. But the objective over here is if there are feeder buses, once you move out of your house, you take the bus and just move there.
Feeder buses are, I think that's, even if you're parking on the metro station, that's not that bad. I think it's okay. It happens all across.
Feeder buses or last mile connectivity, that's what the right way to plan that is. I mean, some of these transit corridors are being built in such highly dense areas of cities of India where the road width is not enough. How can you build parking structures? I mean, I see Bangalore first phase is now operational, and I was looking at one station right on the MG road in Bangalore, and I was looking at it, where are people going to come here and take this metro from? Because they have no place to park. And no place to park in 10-kilometer radius. Forget about somewhere in the back alley.
Yeah.
And there's no parking zones across. Your car will get towed away if you parked on MG Road. Okay? So I guess we have to also understand the handicaps that the government faces. Meaning MG Road was not built today. MG Road has been there since ages, So they never planned anything more than bullock carts. So I don't know how they're going to handle or address these situations. There will always be challenges. Planning guys come into the picture on that to address each and every challenge which is going to be unique in nature. There's no standard format in India which is going to work.
Right. So I think the panel has kind of touched upon most of the points in terms of challenges. The benefits are visible to all of us, like BRTS or the metros, wherever it is operating. It's for the ease of convenience, it's for the ease of, I think, walk to work culture kind of things. You can do your shopping around the transit zones itself, and you can have more quality time with your family. The wellness quotient is obviously very, very important. It's a way to, is a way in which we have to go forward. I think the smart cities cannot sustain if we don't have a smart planning and a smart transportation, because if we are talking about peripheries, it needs to be connected as well. So with this note, I would like to throw it open to the audience if they have any, points to make or any queries or any questions.
One other thing that we need to also see on the growth or the annexed parts of the city, they need to make planning for the transit corridor. They might not build transit corridors right now, but anything that is being taken over in the master plan, like the new development plans or the future growth of the cities, they should definitely plan to put metros and BRTS or other transit systems. They might not build it. It's not cost effective to build if you don't have density, but they should have provision for it.
That's what they are doing in Singapore and Hong Kong, where they're laying it and then they would bring it up.
There's no questions asked on it, but
yeah.
So we need smart city planners. We need to strictly abide to the development plans, and not have any developments happening in outskirts of the development plan or wherever there is absence of development plan, unless you're in real rural area. So they should isolate maybe, I don't know, 50-kilometer radius from the city center and saying only development plan will work and nothing else. So that way, somebody mentioned about Bhopal, Sun City. Yeah. So no Sun Cities will happen in future. So that's thought has to be put in today. We might not have money to implement that thought, but it'll take decades. At least the next generation will have a better planning.
I think this topic touches each one of us in various ways, and we can keep on talking on this. We can keep on having our views. So very happy to hear from the audiences. Is there anyone who can give the mic to the gentleman over here?
So, wherever in the world where there is public transport which has been successful, there are two things which are also along with the public transport. One is decongestion charges in the city. So when we go to downtown in peak hours, you have to pay a tax. Another is the parking charge per hour. So if you want to park in downtown Manhattan, you have to pay $20 an hour or such a humongous fee. And that is also according to the peak hour. If it's off peak hour, it reduces. So, but however in India, nobody is talking about heavy parking charges. In fact, in Bombay, when I went to Lower Parel, which is one of these spots, watchman ko de dena 20 rupees, ho kar dega park. So, why everybody in India is focused on things, what are success stories outside the world? Why they're not copying it, cut paste? In Britain, we have decongestion charge. In New York, we have toll tax to pay if you want to go cross the, sea, In Singapore, we have a decongestion charge. Everywhere, public transport has been successful. And this is the indirect relation. People would think that rather than spending $50 in to and fro from New Jersey to New York, let me take the train, which costs $5. So my question is, why don't we do this?
We don't have the per capita incomes to match up to these countries. So we'll have that, as I said, the budgets, the income levels, the civic sense, the standard of living will all be a challenge until the income levels rise in this country. Job creation is the right mantra. Our Modi ji is saying, make in India. All these are things going in the right direction, but until then, all government efforts, public transportation, transits, or any civic infrastructure will have to be substantially subsidized for common man to be used. That, if we don't follow that, if we put exorbitant rates, these governments will fail. They will not get re-elected 5 years later. If you put $20 parking charges. We'll lose BJP as our municipality here. We'll have to think of some other Kejriwal here. If they put for $20 parking charges on CG Road. So we'll have to match these pricing or the costs to use these services or civic infrastructure to the current income levels of this country. That's the answer to your question.
And the other thing is there is no parking, so why parking charges?
I think your question is very valid. However, if I were to be very optimist, and if I were to think that in the next 10 years, the transit-oriented zone will change, it will become more dense, my transit system would be working much better, my pedestrian systems would be working much better. If all this happens in the next 10 years, say, and I'm very optimistic, then can I imagine something like what you are saying? I can. I can imagine something like that, what you're saying. But before that, it will only bring brickbats to the people who will be imposing that, and it will not solve the purpose correctly, is what I think.
Hi, my name is Nayan. A question. We're talking about smart cities and TOD and things like that, which is very capital intensive. Why are we not talking about making people smart? You know, probably it only requires somebody to take a leadership position and educate people to use this infrastructure in better way. Today, a 6-track road in Ahmedabad is reduced to a single 2-track road just because of sheer, the civic sense, the lack of civic sense by the people. They don't want to walk even 50 meters to go to their destination. And they park not only double, triple parking, and they reduce the 6-track road to a 2-track road. Now, wouldn't it be, meaning to use this existing infrastructure in a better way, wouldn't it be prudent to educate people and see to it that, this infrastructure is used in better way?
Nayan bhai, I am fully in sync with you when you ask that question. Can it be done in reality is a major challenge. We are a country of 1.2 billion people, where about 400 million people are worried about what they're going to eat in the night. So the civic sense that we're talking about is one of the least priorities right now if we talk about majority of the population. To change the culture altogether, Narendra Modi has started this one abhiyan of Swachh Bharat. Are we seeing it happening? Maybe in some pockets, yes. This is one thing that affects everybody. Like, this is Swachh Bharat is like, affects every single person. Parking and commute does not affect people who are beggars on the street. Still, not so many people will buy into it. To change the culture, this is what it is. Like, in any organization, any country, any place, whatever the culture has been set, to change the culture, it takes, I don't know what can be done. Countries like New Zealand, they have a culture of spitting on the road. Country like New Zealand, everybody spits on the road, and they walk bare feet. You cannot change the culture. The culture is set into this. So while we want in the idealistic situation, yes, people get smart, it can be enforced to a certain extent. Beyond a point, I do not see that happening when the population size is this large. Yeah.
And people are forgetting the contribution of the citizens to make this BRTS successful. Today, it is a culture that we do not go into the BRTS track. We do not take our vehicle into the BRTS track. Because the BRTS was positioned, in the first place, it was positioned as pride of Ahmedabad. Okay? Today, we talk about it with pride. And we would not, unless we are, forced, we would not go into the BRTS track. Look at Calcutta. Calcutta Metro is altogether a different city. You go inside the metro station, it is a different city altogether, same citizens. So probably, positioning your infrastructure in such a way would definitely make a difference.
Absolutely, I totally agree. And there is no, we both are on the same page in a way that it has to be done, it can be done. Can it be done at the mass level is a challenge. How to implement is a challenge. While the BRTS, like, to your example itself, like, while we live in the western side of the city and we do not take BRTS route. I have been onto the eastern side just recently and it's a complete opposite story. I'm sorry to say that. People are taking it. Only when there is somebody to stop them, they are not taking it. Otherwise, they are taking it. On the eastern side, that is a reality. Yes, we can improve it. There is an opportunity. It's a very, very long process, and the need of the hour is now.
I see it. You leave at 8:30 in the evening on Satellite Road, you'll see cars traveling on that BRTS road. If you travel during non-peak hours, yes, people are more disciplined. But, this people are getting pushed because the other regular lanes are chock-a-block with traffic. What do? They'll just take the BRTS because they can get delayed to wherever they need to get to. So they see one BRTS bus crawling every 5 minutes, and then you have millions of cars burning fuel, expensive fuel which we import, and standing, waiting for some intersection to clear off because there is no law enforcement agency to monitor the traffic and we have no signal. So nobody's following signals. So the question is people don't have civic sense? Yes, people don't have civic sense because there is low law enforcement. If you make it very penalizing for them to violate that, then they will follow laws. In Singapore, nobody does that. Why? Because law enforcement is very stiff. So it's a cultural thing in our country. It'll take a long time. So I think government is making a dedicated effort. The infrastructure needs to be top-notch for people to not dirty it. As you said, you go into Calcutta Metro and people have different behavior. The same Indian citizens go to Singapore and they don't even spit chewing gum. They'll be put in Changi jail. So it's your environment makes you behave properly. So I think we need to create an environment also for them to, if they see dirt everywhere, trash everywhere, what stops any civilized person to throw away one more plastic glass on the street because he's seeing so much of trash on the street. If you see the whole street neat and clean, air-conditioned metro with air-conditioned metro station, and you're seeing nobody spitting, you won't spit. So we need to build richer infrastructure, better infrastructure, put more law enforcement in place. Automatically civic sense will come.
Yes, one.
Good evening, judges. My question is to the panelists. Last year, only BRTS route has been opened in Surat, and Chief Minister has inaugurated the route, the first phase. So very much happily, I have thought of to ride in the BRTS bus in very next day. When I reached to the station, the waiting time was 16 minutes for the next bus. And because the entire 11-kilometer stretch, they have put it down 9 buses by promising that they will increase the buses by a higher number within a few months of time, which hasn't been done. So very recently, they have opened the second phase of the same BRTS stretch. So after that, I have also visited second time the BRTS stand, and I have seen the waiting time there was what, 30 minutes. So it is like they have provided the road infrastructure, but the number of buses they haven't increased. So aren't we discussing there is an issue in the operating system in the BRTS management? Because it looks like a bus rapid transportation system with a huge waiting time.
Correct. As we said, government should not get into business of operating businesses. But when government does, this is what happens. So PPP is the right model. Look at what's the difference between a private airport and a railway station. That's the difference. Because railway station is run by government and private airports are run by private entities, So that difference is going to be there.
I think one question I would ask you, when the gap is 30 minutes, are they able to fill the bus when it comes after 30 minutes or it's still empty? It's still empty. Okay. So their challenge, they're just not trying to be their advocate, but their challenge might be ज़्यादा चला के भी क्या करेंगे? And now it's a who comes egg or the chicken. If they make it more user-friendly, more better routes, more connectivity, then people will adapt to it. Then it will eventually get an efficiency. So that's why it's a hard route. So I think that. So I think then what we are saying, what we are understanding is that investment should be higher and it should not necessarily look for the return of investment right